Willy Wonka has a lot of designs, and I mean a lot. There are around a dozen official versions of the character, and that's not even counting all of the other small variations like the many ways Book Wonka has been illustrated. Now, with so many versions of this character, there are bound to be ones that look better or worse than others. But what about the ones that have like the worst designs ever? What are the versions of Wonka that have outright bad designs? Well, in order to figure that out, let's rant about them. I'm gonna tell you right now that most of these Wonkas I actually do genuinely really like. Most of them! You know who you are. At the same time, however, these are versions of Wonka whose designs I personally think suck. Before I start with the actual list for the worst Wonka character designs, I want to get some honorable mentions out of the way, so that I can discuss Wonkas that have designs I have issues with, but they don't dip into outright bad levels. Puffin Books Wonka. This was a version of Book Wonka seen on some cover artwork for Puffin Books reprints of the original novel. Something about this design just feels off. I think it's the really short hair, it just does not seem to fit the character. Other than that though, I think it's alright. Clay Nestle Wonka. Why I ever consider this a substantial version of Wonka is beyond me, because it's literally just Nestle's Wonka mascot, but in clay form. I like how faithfully they were able to convert Nestle Wonka into claymation style. It looks really nice, but at the same time there's barely anything to truly differentiate him from the main mascot. Unlike the next honorable mention, UK Nestle Wonka. This is basically Nestle Wonka with the classic, plasticky, horrifying early computer graphics aesthetic. The brand in the UK was advertised and handled a lot differently than in the US, which I feel does justify differentiating the UK mascot and overall UK brand from the one they use throughout most other regions. As for the design of the UK mascot, I really like the unnerving early CGI aesthetic, but at the same time, this terrifying animatronic version of Wonka was largely being advertised to 6-year-olds, which I can imagine didn't help the company, especially during the latter half of the early 2000s when Nestle UK sales were overall declining, and is probably one of the reasons why you barely hear or see of the UK branch at all. I can imagine kids were rightfully scared of this newest potential robot overlord and were too scared to buy his crap, and were therefore too scared to record and preserve said crap for posterity. The design is really cool, I love the early CGI aesthetic, but something this utterly terrifying really shouldn't be trying to sell literal chocolate firecrackers to 6-year-olds. Wild Coaster Wonka. Okay, so they actually did make a 3D version of normal Nestle Wonka, and it's fine. It does a good job at 3D-ifying the mascot in a very faithful 1-to-1 ratio. However, it doesn't have anywhere near the amount of novelty that the UK mascot has, since literally the only documented time this has ever been used is for a commercial for this roller coaster sweepstakes event they held during the tail end of the early 2000s. It's fine. Australian Nestle Wonka. This specifically was the mascot they used in Australia during what I like to call the company's overall modern era, from 2006 to around early 2009. It's largely the same as the vanilla version of the mascot aside from a minor aesthetic change, so all the problems I have with the normal design also apply here. Not talking about the Australian version in the main video because doing so would be stupid and redundant. Tom and Jerry Wonka. This design is alright. Him and the movie he's coming from are largely mild and inoffensive. I like seeing Wonka in the Hanna-Barbera style, but the design itself isn't really anything to write home about. It's okay. Irish Broadway Wonka. I actually was really torn on this design because of how all over the place it is, but I will give them some big credit. Not only do I like how they were able to translate Wonka's crazy, unpredictable, adventurous side into an actual design, they were able to give him an edge without making him an edged lord. The design's really neat. I love it actually. Okay, honorable mentions over, let's go dumpster diving. Hey guys, remember back in my Wonka evolution video where I said that this was the worst version of Wonka ever made? Man, dude, I wish this was the worst version of Wonka ever made, instead of only barely qualifying for this list. For those of you who don't know, this mascot was used during what I like to call the Wonka Candy Company's modern era, from mid-2006 to around late 2008, and it's a downgrade. That's really the only way I can describe this design. It's a downgrade. Before this, during the company's golden years, the mascot was like Wonka, but webcore? It's an absolutely awesome design, one that I cannot give enough praise. But then you get to this mascot, and it just feels inferior by comparison. I can't really pinpoint why this design feels so strangely inferior either. I feel like part of it has to do with the darkened color palette. The darkened and desaturated colors really don't give him that magic and nostalgic early 2000s vibe that once made the Nestle mascot so cool. I also really don't like how his hair looks either. Why does it look so rubbery and non-detailed? Something about his overall face just does not sit well with me either. First of all, there are like the dead eyes instead of the really expressive and lively bright blue eyes of the retro era mascot. It doesn't make him look more expressive or quirky, it's just uncanny. The overall shape of his face and facial features don't do him justice either, especially the nose. I guess the smaller nose makes him able to be more expressive, sure, but at the same time, again, it just does not look right. That's the best way I can summarize this design. When compared to the mascot that came before it, it's just off. It's like looking at liminal space photos. Something is just wrong about it. If you take away the context of this being a mascot downgrade, then I guess it's alright. It does its job of being quirky and colorful and effectively marketing towards children. That's actually a big reason why this mascot received such an off-putting change. Times were changing and so were the kids that they were targeting to. And I guess it does a good job at capturing the mid to late 2000s aesthetic, if that even exists, but again, this mascot just feels so strange. You wanna know one beauty of Wonka as a character? Overall, his design is simple and to the point, but he has these recognizable traits that make him Willy Wonka. Top hat, cane, purple coat, sometimes he has a big nose. However, what were to happen if you were to strip away all of this and turn Wonka into one of the most needlessly detailed characters ever? That's what coloring book Wonka is, and man, I do not like this design. Okay, yes, I can see the appeal. A lot of adult coloring books really focus on detail to their visuals, but dear Neptune, no. This version of Wonka was seen in this Roald Dahl coloring book, which, as far as I can tell, is officially licensed merchandise. But if that's the case, then why did you have to make him look like a combination of literally every single other version of Wonka? Why couldn't you have made a realistic version of Book Wonka, like the one seen in all the Quentin Blake illustrations? He somehow looks like Book Wonka, 1971 Wonka, and 2005 Wonka all at the exact same time. Are you having an identity crisis or something? Like, what is going on here? I'm not hating on the person who designed him. They're really talented. I appreciate the detail and quality of these drawings, but this version of Wonka is just, why? And the actual design itself is just unbridled chaos. What is with the detail? Why does he have candies in his undershirt and his bow tie? Why does his hat have stripes? Why does he have a pocket watch? Why does he have like fluffy cufflink things in his sleeves? And plaid trousers, really? Oh, and of course he has socks on the outside of his trousers. And something about the glasses also really ticks me off. Why the glasses? These aren't shades like how they did the Wonka Vision machine either. These are just actual, normal, straight up glasses. Yes, I get that Wonka is all about magic and non-reason, but again, there is no need for this design to be so gosh darn chaotic. It makes my brain hurt trying to process everything. Wonka is usually a simple character, designed to be, well, simplistic, yet recognizable. This version of Wonka is not simple. It's confusing chaos that I do not like. Again, I'm not discrediting whoever drew these illustrations. I will give them credit for creating really beautifully illustrated coloring pages, but honestly, this version of Wonka is just not for me. Back in 2021, ServiceNow made this absolutely awesome commercial campaign advertising their digital workflows plugin, and they had Dominic Marsh be the lead role, and they used 1971 Wonka wait, ServiceNow Wonka, 1971 Wonka. ServiceNow Wonka, 1971 Wonka. Yeah, I've been looking at pictures of these two back to back for like 10 minutes now, and I still can't tell the difference. You people can see why this could be problematic, right? It's 1971 Wonka. Again. For the 11th time! 1971 Wonka is great, and so is Dominic Marsh, but in terms of ServiceNow Wonka, there is no difference. Oh, ServiceNow Wonka has different hair, because that is the biggest and most notable change you could ever make ever. Okay, to give ServiceNow Wonka credit, 1971 Wonka is the most recognizable version of the character, and you are mostly marketing towards adults. But if they're adults, why not market towards their nostalgia and make him look like Nestle Wonka? In terms of design, there is literally almost nothing separating ServiceNow Wonka and 1971 Wonka. Sure, in concept they're different. They have, I guess, different personalities, but in terms of design, they're practically mirrors of each other. Like, you should have taken more liberty with this design instead of giving us more of the same. 1971 Wonka, the everyman of Wonkas, gets his face covered in candy butterflies and next thing you know, he's making little clones of himself. In all seriousness though, what is there to differentiate these two designs? Different hair? Different bow tie? What difference do these two things make in the grand scheme of things, I ask you? All we're getting is more of the same, something that this franchise has been dealing with for over half a century now. Seriously, can we please start making original looking versions of Wonka instead of relying on the 1971 version for everything? It's getting old! Sunmark Wonka is in this video, and this low down. Man, I wish I could say something about Sunmark Wonka, but there is nothing to talk about. This was a Wonka Candy Company mascot that was used during the early to mid 90s, and it is the most painfully uninspired Wonka design ever. I mean, honestly, every single thing that this design has is something that is already owned by at least one other version of Wonka. And they do it even better somehow. No, really, let's actually examine this design in detail for a second here. He has the purple top hat. Yeah, well, so do the two mascots that came after him. He has blue eyes. So do many other versions. He has a purple coat. So do almost all other versions. He has beige dress pants. Yeah, well, so did 1971 Wonka. He has a red bow tie. Again, so did the two mascots that were used after him. You guys get my point, right? He's a candy mascot, so are like 6 additional versions. He's an icon of his time. Again, literally almost every single other version of the character. Literally the one unique thing about this Wonka is the oddly reddish-orange hair. And again, that's not even something that huge. Even going beyond this design, there is still nothing to talk about. There isn't a lot of stuff like memorabilia or events they did with the candy company back then. I mean, back when they were using this mascot, they had this magician named Mark Sweet do this Reading Make Summer Sweeter campaign thing, and he did a lot of stuff with Six Flags, but that says a lot more about Mark Sweet Wonka than it does about Sunmark Wonka. What else is there to say about Sunmark Wonka, other than he's dull, drab, and platitudinous? The design is boring and bland. Like, if you were to ask an AI art generator to make Willy Wonka, this is likely the version it would produce. It's that typical and nondescript. It doesn't have anything unique to offer, and why invest in something that already has things that have been done better by other versions of Wonka? But to give him some credit, I guess him being boring does give him some kind of label. At least he has some kind of gimmick. And you know, he may be bland and boring, but honestly, at the very least, he is not. Johnny Depp, I love and respect the heck out of you, but holy sweet mother of God! I don't even know. What were they thinking? I don't even know where to begin with where this design fails, because this design fails everywhere. As a whole, this version of Wonka has 3 main problems: his design, his attitude problem, and his backstory. I often flip-flop between which of the 3 is the worst, but you know what? I don't even need to kid myself anymore, because his design is genuinely the worst of the whole lot. Seriously, never before has there been a character redesign that has been so consistent in seriously ticking me off. Even the color palette of his wardrobe seriously gets on my nerves. No, really, Willy Wonka is supposed to be this happy, colorful old man, not some glorified version of the late 1800s. Gosh darn it, this is not Willy Wonka. This outfit is way too dark and desaturated. It just does not fit the character, especially in context with Book Wonka. I mean, if you just recolor his clothes to look more like Book Wonka, then that makes him look at least a little bit better. Book Wonka, he's neat. And then they did this. Oh, and let's not forget the bob cut. Man, I hate this hairstyle. Again, can someone please tell me, who thought something like this would be appropriate for Willy Wonka? Why does this character have a bob cut? Are you okay? Do I need to call the fashion police? And then we have the gloves. Now, usually Wonka's gloves are portrayed as being made with this sort of thin, pearly cotton film material, but these gloves are made of latex! You are waving around latex gloves in front of a bunch of 9-year-olds and their parents. Do I need to explain how wrong and stupid that sounds? Who in the hydraulic frack thought adding these gloves was okay? Who even thought this entire design was okay? Did they want this design to suck? And your cane has Beetlejuice stripes on it. Why? What is the point of adding these stripes? I mean, sure, a lot of other versions of Wonka make deviations from the original book design, but at least with them, I know of, or at the very least can see some kind of valid justification for the design being different, but this? No. Again, all you would need to do is just change the color of the tip of his cane from striped to gold like it was in the book. Just dip it in gold paint or buy a normal gold tipped cane, people. It's an easy thing to fix. It baffles me that they made these needless changes. And yes, again, a lot of them do deviate from the original book design, but again, I can at least see some kind of justification for it. Like with 1971 Wonka, Gene Wilder didn't like the idea of bright green trousers, so he opted for beige dress pants instead. Like, that is a justifiable reason for change. The only justification for 2005 Wonka is something actually said by Johnny Depp himself. Johnny Depp once said this about the 2005 movie. The hair I imagined as a kind of Prince Valiant do. High bangs and a bob. Extreme and very unflattering, but something that Wonka would probably think is cool because he's been locked away for such a long time and doesn't know any better. Like the outdated slang he uses. So apparently they were trying to go for some kind of primitive form of boomer cringe humor, and sure, when older folks try to imitate youngsters and be all hip and cool, it can create quite the spectacle. But that is nothing, I repeat, nothing, compared to this. Johnny Depp, you're an awesome actor, you're an awesome human being, but this was not one of your high moments. It genuinely hurts me that the 2005 film as a whole had the potential to be something spectacular, but then this happened. And now this version of Wonka has overshadowed literally every single other version of the character, which includes this, and this, and this, and worst of all, even this. But I guess by that logic, there are inevitably going to be versions of Wonka that are better and worse than others. And because of that, there will be people with different opinions on different Wonkas. And you know what? That's what makes this franchise so fun. I love getting to hear why other people like whatever versions of Wonka. Heck, some people might like the 2005 version of Wonka for the same reasons I like the early 2000s Nestle mascot. And quite honestly, I'm perfectly fine with it. What did you guys think of these Wonka designs? Let me know in the comments.